Hello everyone, I'm Okazaki from Line Corporation. In this session, I'm going to talk about the front-end design system. Before I start, I want to have a quick show of hands. How many of you went to the previous session by Jake about line design system? Thank you so much. About a half of people here. I think some of them are overlapped here, but I think you can understand more deeply. And also, even if this is your first time session here in the hallway, it's also okay. So don't worry about it. I'm going to introduce myself first and also about my team, and then UI framework, design system, and lastly, I will talk about Parang library for web. Again, my name is Okazaki, and I am a front-end engineer at Line. I belong to an organization called UIT. Have you heard of the word UIT? I guess it doesn't sound familiar. UIT stands for User Interface Technology, and we are responsible for the overall front-end development. This is the organization structure. There's Front-End Development Center, and under that there are UIT Department 1 and 2. And Department 1 is located in Tokyo, and 2 is located in Kyoto and Fukuoka. And I myself belong to the front-end standardization team of UIT Department 1. Outside Japan, we have branches in Bundan of South Korea, Taipei of Taiwan, and Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh of Vietnam. In total of domestic and global, we have 7 branches. Also, we have over 160 front-end engineers. This photo is from this September in Chuncheon in Korea, when we had a UIT Global Workshop. About once a year, UIT front-end engineers come together and have a technical exchange session. Every year, UIT conducts an internal survey related to front-end so that we know overall knowledge level, framework, and tool usage trend. And this is the length of experience of front-end development. The majority has 5 to 10 years of experience, and the second largest group is those with 2 to 5 years of experience. Next, about the knowledge level. On the left, it's CSS, and on the right, it's JS, JavaScript. The darker the color, the more expert they are, and the brightest color shows the beginners. And for CSS, intermediate level accounts for about 50%, and the rest is 30%. And for JavaScript, about 30% for intermediate and 40% for higher levels. More members are good at JavaScript than CSS. The most used CSS framework is Bootstrap, which is about 30%. And the second most used is Custom Framework, about 14%. The rest of the members are not using frameworks. For JavaScript framework, as you can see, Vue and React are the best 2 frameworks here in this list. And last year, Angular was in this list, but it was out of the ranking this year. And the Vue to React ratio varies depending on the branch, but overall characteristic of UIT is that Vue is slightly more common. So I'm going to talk about UIT works. At UIT, we are using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to develop web application. To be more specific, within the client app, we are creating web view and also web apps in browser. Also, SDK and tools for developers, and also new frameworks are developed in this team as well. If you say Line, then probably you are imagining about client apps, but many parts are implemented in WebView. At UIT, we have designers, planners, QA engineers, client and app engineers, server-side engineers. So many people are collaborating together. Next, I will talk about our activities for external community. UIT members led to establish our front-end community, UIT. This is a practical community for front-end engineers. It has a variety of topics and themes. Once every 2 months, we are also holding a meetup event. Furthermore, we have front-end podcast called UIT Inside. You can catch up with the latest topic in the front end. We started in this February, and we already have about 30 episodes. Also, we have a contribution to the open source software. And we have the Bootstrap, the most popular CSS framework Japanese website. We translated the website, and we are also operating it since last November. And we have now 140,000 page view monthly. And also we have more than 10,000 users. Now I'll talk about UI frameworks. Line has many services, and there is a web-based admin screen supporting those services. To achieve the development speed and consistent user experience required for the admin screen, we needed UI frameworks. That's Coromo and Coromo View. Coromo is a Bootstrap 4-based CSS toolkit developed by Line, and Coromo View is a view component library for Coromo. Coromo consists of colors, typography, layouts, components, icons, and code assets. Coromo and Coromo View developed by our team has been introduced to many Line services. Now, as a case study of Coromo, let me talk about Official Account Manager. Official Account Manager is a tool to manage Line official account. Main users for this tool are the stores. Using this tool, they can send messages, check user stat information, and customer support through one-on-one chat. In 2018, we started a project called Redesign. For the users, we needed to make our project valuable. So we integrated the conventional official account, Business Connect, Customer Connect, and Line Add into Line official account. Many members are involved in this project from Japan, Korea, Vietnam, and Thailand. Planners, engineers, and QA engineers work together. In total, the number of project members exceeded 150 members. Official account manager required to have a great variety of features, and this screen doesn't show all of the functions that are required. The conventional offshore account manager was created on Java server based on Angular. And it was a multi-page application, but we updated it to a single-page application. In addition to Vue, ES6, Webpack, Babel, and Circle CI were our selections. With Vue as a UI frameworks, we also decided to use Coromo and Coromo View. Finally, this April, the new official account manager was released successfully. By introducing Coromo, the time for designing was greatly reduced. So 30% down overall for the designing time. There is the feedback from the planners and developers. the smooth communication and accelerating the decision-making process, reducing time for page designing. On the other hand, there were some cons as well. They needed a guideline to use components. This is a very easy, simple example. So which is a better alignment for these two buttons? If we just provide components, there's so much flexibility. They're not sure how to align them. If we can overcome this kind of cons, we can make it better and also reduce more time. That was when we came across design system. Mainly for the line up, there was a project called LDS, Line Design System. And Jake was also talking about this. So to overcome the weakness of UI framework, we started a collaboration with LDS. And we have phase 1 for Line messaging app, phase 2 for Line family services and mobile web, and phase 3 for desktop web. We are currently working toward phase 2. UI framework Coromo is developed by our UIT team, and the design system is built by LDS team. And we had the same goal, high productivity and consistent user experience. So we confirmed our own status and what we can do so that we can collaborate. This is from June in Shinjuku when we had a design workshop. From Kyoto, Korea, and Taiwan, members got together and spent 2 days to define project's direction, scope, and roles. And through this workshop, actually, I was the only Japanese person, and everything was in English, so that was a little hard for me. And through this workshop, I learned that a design system is defined and interpreted differently depending on the team and individual. Here, let me introduce major concepts: design principles, style guides, and pattern library. So design principles is about what kind of design we wish to create. And style guide is about how to do that and why we do that. So this is about the standard. And how we can implement it is about the pattern library. So let's break them down. So design principles have its basis, a foundation. And style guides have colors, typography, iconography, and UX guidelines. And for pattern library, there's components, templates, icons, and code assets. The conventional Coromo, the UI framework, had colors and components, etc. However, the design principles and UX guideline didn't exist. If we had design principles, we can rely on that. If we have any wonder, and if we can have UX guideline, then it can provide a consistent user experience. By integrating with the design system, we can make an improvement in this UI framework. So now, changing the perspective, let's look at the design system hierarchy. From the top, there is a design principle, and style guides in the middle, and pattern library at the bottom. Design principles is the core and it's universal, whereas style guides are separated for each platform, and pattern library is divided by technology stacks. I will explain about the design principles first. There are 6 principles in total. We are not users. And clear primary task. And chat first, Line started out as a messenger, and it still is. Reliable design. continuous experience. And lastly, respectful legacy so that it's familiar to users and it's easy to use. These are the 6 design principles. Whenever we are unsure, we come back to these principles.
Next, I'll talk about the style guide. I'll focus on the sections that are a bit easier to understand. Here's the color palette. It is part of what we call a spectrum. Out of more than 60 million colors, we chose colors that we thought are representative of line, and we gave them names for management purposes. Colors are not for one-time use. Rather, we are aiming to achieve a color system that can be used long-term. You can easily retrieve our color codes from our website. We also provide SaaS for developers. Next is typography. Web engineers might be more familiar with the term font family. Line supports Japanese as well as English, Korean, Chinese, Thai, Bahasa, and other languages. Therefore, every language has its own font family. Next is iconography. This defines style, grid, stroke thickness, isolation zone, among other things. Follow these definitions to create an icon that can be easily associated with line. Next, I will talk about our pattern libraries that we are currently developing. My topic will mainly focus on web. Our pattern libraries include CSS, Vue, React, and icons. Icons are a bit unique. This pattern library is shared between web and app. You could call it an independent minimalist design system. Therefore, in this hierarchy, icons are placed between web and app. This is the settings page of the LINE messaging app. You can see a close button at the top right. Can you guess how many kinds of close buttons there are in LINE? The answer is 10. If you look closely, each has a different color, transparency, size, stroke, isolation area, and file name. I think you would agree that no one needs this many close buttons. Oh. Here's a question. What saddens farmers most? It's when their harvest is wasted or uneaten. Food loss is food that is wasted, lost, or uneaten due to overproduction or failure to meet standards for quality and appearance. If you replace food with designs, you could call our dilemma a design loss. If we had unified standards and planned ahead on the way we manage our inventory, we could have avoided design loss. We can avoid design loss by normalizing icons. To do this, we need a naming scheme, flexibility, and a single data source. These are the names of icons in the LINE messaging app. While their functionalities are self-explanatory, their names need to be more versatile to make them available in our library. Therefore, we must change their names to something that describes their shape and form, not their functionality. In other words, friend would be user, add friend would be user plus, and members would be users. This is the gist of our naming rule. Next is LICON, which stands for Line Atomic Icon. We compared icons to elements and created a periodic table. Icons need to be accessible in order to fulfill their purpose. So, LICON is the single source that lets you easily search for our icons. It is also possible to add metadata to let people search for icons other than by their names. There are currently more than 200 icons registered, and they are being used in LINE's web services. Icon sources are all managed in SVG format. As with text, you can change the color as well as the size. XML makes it lightweight. You can even compress the file in gzip to make it even more lightweight, making the icon source very versatile. To accommodate various development needs, we provide CSS, Vue Component, React Component, Inline SVG, Unicode as implementation methods. This is our current deployment flow. Designers create icons, which are then received via Zeppelin. Next, engineers push them to GitHub. The registered SVG files are converted to several kinds of font files. Then, the font files are deployed to CDN, private NPM, and the Lycon website. As you can see, there are a lot of steps, which is a problem. This is our future deployment flow. Designers directly upload their SVG icons to the Lycon manager. At the same time, they also register metadata used to search for their icons. The current plan is to make the icons go live automatically once reviewing is finished. We also plan to distribute sketch symbols from the website which are in demand, and also provide images through our imaging API. These are the specifications of our imaging API. You can specify the image, format, color, height, and shape. For image formats, you can choose between WebP and PNG, and for the color, you can specify the alpha channel in RGB format. For the shape, you can choose between square and content. Square type is always generated as a regular quadrilateral, while the shape of content type is determined by each icon's shape. If you compare this to fonts, square would be equal to fixed width and content would be proportional. Well, for general purposes, square type is more appropriate since it includes an isolation zone. Content type is more flexible if you are going to apply restriction with CSS. Lycons are being used mainly on web right now. However, we are preparing an environment that allows you to use customized fonts in the app for Android and iOS. Therefore, you should be able to start using Lycons on client apps very soon. Next, I will talk about CSS. I will talk about our approach to theming, instancy, and adaptive components, all of which are needed in a design system. With CSS, we define 6 colors by purpose to accommodate component variations. They are primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, and info, same as Bootstrap. They allow you to support dark mode for iOS, power saving, focus on the content, and support night mode. As you know, dark mode is an important concept if we want to be mobile first. While Line's brand color is green, services besides the messaging app sometimes have their own brand color. Therefore, we needed to provide individual themes to let each service show its own color. If we could let developers switch themes, the design system will become a very convenient tool that better fits each service. That's why we created custom properties. You can set the primary color using the var function. If the first parameter is not set, the second parameter will be set as its substitute. Using this mechanism, you can implement a theme using just CSS. There are a number of ways to specify the color with CSS. In this chart, I have compared RGB and HSL. Please take a look at the green colors on the left. The tone becomes 10% darker from top to bottom. It is very difficult to control this with RGB. On the other hand, with HSL, you just need to change L for lightness. Subtract 10% to make a color 10% darker. These icons show the typical button statuses: default, hover, and active. As in the previous slide, the darkness increases by 10% increments. If you combine custom properties, HSL, and the calc functionality, you can create color tones just with CSS. Since you don't need SAS or compile, you can create tones instantly. Accessible components need contrast. On a light background, people want dark text, and vice versa. As in the previous slides, you can do this by combining custom properties, HSL, and calc. In this example, 70% lightness is set as the threshold, and you calculate the difference. Then, you overflow by multiplying negative 100%. Then, the text color will automatically become black if you go over the threshold and white if you go under. You can do this just with CSS as well. Here is a chart explaining layouts including a grid system. There are 5 levels of responsive layouts. On the other hand, components have always had a consistent style regardless of the breaking point. However, mobile and desktop have different clickable areas and space restrictions. Therefore, we are planning to make extra small and small components mobile, and medium to extra large components desktop to create 2 kinds of adaptive components. To summarize, our CSS contains responsive layouts and adaptive components. Next, I'll talk about JavaScript. As I mentioned in my introduction, at Line, we mostly use Vue and React. If we just focus on these two, 57% is Vue and 40% is React. Vue is more dominant than React. Based on this fact, we developed Coromo Vue. We were planning to develop Coromo React next, which was second in demand. But then we realized there's a problem. While Coromo Vue runs on Vue, it is incompatible with libraries like React or Angular. Likewise, Coromo React runs on React, but not Vue or Angular. Since component libraries not only incur an initial development cost, they also require a running cost for maintenance work. The more component libraries we need to maintain, the more burden they will become. That's where web components come in. Web components are browser APIs that let you build reusable components. Web components run on most browsers excluding Internet Explorer and Edge. Also, since it is standard web technology, its specifications are universal for higher return on development investment. In order to test the durability of web components against our design system, we carried out a proof of concept from 5 perspectives. 1. Will it work on WebView? 2. Can it be used in Vue and React? 3. Can it reuse HTML and CSS code from Coromo? 4. What is the learning curve for developers? And 5. How will polyfill integration fit in? After testing, we identified that polyfills are needed only when IE 11 needs to be supported, but the test passed for everything else. So we started coding. I present to you our Coromo Web Component Library, Coromo Element. Coromo Element runs on any framework. It is a reusable component that runs on Vue, React, and Angular. Even if the version of the frameworks we are currently using increases in the future and the updates are detrimental, or even if new frameworks are released, Coromo Element will always be compatible. With Custom Element, your codes become simpler and more comprehensible. Code written in Coromo is displayed in a smart format in Coromo Element, as you can see here. You no longer need to use div everywhere. Development using Coromo element will be based on Coromo. For each Coromo component, you copy disassembled HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code and reuse them to develop Coromo element. While the rate varies for each component, we expect that more than 90% of HTML and CSS code can be reused. To summarize what I have explained so far, Coromo element is a reusable component and also allows you to easily change themes. We want to make it run on WebView and browsers as well as mobile and desktop. I have a question. How many of you know Liff? Please raise your hand if you know what Liff is. I see about 70% of you have raised your hand. Thank you. Liff is the acronym for Line Front-End Framework. Liff is a WebView-based framework that runs in the Line app and is available to the public, meaning anyone here can use it too. We released version 1 last June and version 2 last month. We are planning to launch a dedicated user interface for Liff. We call it LUI. Here is an example of the compact view type. The layer on top of the app is LUI. We plan to combine LUI and Coromo element. Let me use the atomic design as an analogy. If you compare Liff to an atomic design, each component is an atom, clusters of components are a molecule, a functional component is an organism, combine functional components and you get a template, add data to it and you get a page. Coromo provides everything from components or atoms to templates. Coromo element reuses and develops things in the atomic and molecular levels. Meanwhile, LUI provides everything in the organism and template level containing atoms and molecules of Coromo element. I know it's complicated, but this is how we differentiate between Coromo, Coromo element, and LUI. I will finish with a summary. Here is our approach to our design system. It is a recommended system for which decisions are made from bottom up and not top down. We provide parts that are in between module type and integrated design type. Lastly, the design system support team is a centralized team. There are close to 30 people building our design system. They include web and app engineers. The project manager is Jake, who presented earlier. We also have 6 UX designers, 10 UI designers, 1 Android engineer, 3 iOS engineers, and more than 10 front-end engineers. The front-end part has members in Tokyo and Kyoto. 3 are working on Lycon, 4 on Coromo and Coromo View, and 6 on Coromo element. 3 Coromo element members are concurrently working on Liff and LUI. Everyone in this slide are all members of the UIT department. This is the front-end side of our design system. We have Coromo, Coromo element, and Lycon as pattern libraries. For CSS, you have Coromo. For Vue and React and Angular, you have Coromo Element. And for both web and app, you have Lycon. This is how the Front-End Development Center supports Line's design system. Style guides and pattern libraries are based on design principles. They are similar to the two wheels of a bicycle. The front wheel determines the direction like style guides, and the back wheel propels the bicycle forward like pattern libraries. Both are needed for the bicycle to function. They are connected and synchronized. In the same manner, Coromo, Coromo Element, and Lycon are much like a geared bicycle. We will change gears according to various situations and accelerate Line's development efforts. This concludes my session. Thank you.